Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. What another terrific Tuesday edition of Talk Today. To invite, to include, to involve, to educate, possibly entertain. Who knows what will happen when it's just the two of us. The two of us. Not just me and Susan, but all of you are invited. We've got open line until 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock, Dr. Coon from ICCI will join us. And then 1:30, get a chance from the good folks from our Ministry of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency. Just in the name itself, it sounds empowering and encouraging. We could talk about their, climate change policy. But let's start it off with open line. Let's let it shine. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. And Cayman Airways. Call them on 949-2311 to book your nonstop flights to Los Angeles and Panama.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email Talk Today at candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Thank you. I've said it often privately and increasingly more so publicly. It is truly a distinct honor and privilege to be presented with the opportunity to sit here and facilitate. I hope you find it beneficial, instructive, and rewarding. Hopefully you feel invited and welcome and you feel a sense that this is a safe space to share your perspective. Doesn't mean that you agree with all that is said by others, whether they're in a position of authority or otherwise. But you feel the freedom to exercise your right to express your opinion. I always believe that every corresponding sort of freedom of expression comes with a sense of responsibility to be respectful in how you present it and to champion as much as you defend your right to share, you defend the right of others to have a complementary or a competing view. Because if a democracy is to be preserved, if it's to be protected and promoted, we need to be able to do that. We can't allow somebody, or whether, and I say this with the greatest of respect, it is our pastor, however we define that term, whether it's in the church from the pew that you sit and you hear it, or whether it's spouted from the pulpit, or whether it's the individual who has been appointed or elected to high office who shares a perspective. And even with greater respect, if it's the quote-unquote judge in the high court, in the highest court, that you have the appellate function, who expounds something, who presents something that then impacts your lives, you must be able to question that. You must be able to also support it, even if there are others who oppose it. But we always must be done with a way of respect. And if it's something, let's say it's a law, so your highest office in this jurisdiction anyway, or parliament, and I don't say that lightly, and I don't say that within a sense of disdain or disrespect. I question our use of words like cabinet and parliament and others because we're not an independent nation. And those of us who've studied political science, who've experienced it firsthand, would say that those are sort of creeping movements to sensitize, some would say desensitize, some would say condition the populace that eventually when you get to that space of independence, political independence, that the words become commonplace. It also, as the political scientists amongst us have shared with us, some of us in private conversations, some of us in public presentations and lectures and the like, as part of their colloquium, they have shared, listen, this is something that the international community would hear, and without any intimate knowledge of your constitution, your jurisdiction, would unconsciously assume that because you use those words like parliament, like cabinet, like the like, that you are an independent nation. Now, that may not mean much for us because we know differently, but what is the perception? How does that inform their sort of decisions and considerations? Well, it's always good to have healthy discourse. As we go to our phones and welcome this caller. Welcome. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dwayne, and your esteemed listeners.
Good afternoon, sir. It's a pleasure to hear from you. How are you today?
Well, I'm fine, thanks. It's always a pleasure to try and converse with you and through you with your listeners. You have kicked off on some huge subjects, possible independence and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, nothing too deep and profound necessarily on a Tuesday, right? I mean, just light and easy. I mean, the coffee wasn't that strong earlier.
Well, it's an odd conversation for Tuesday. Monday or Friday, maybe. I don't know about Tuesday.
Yeah, well, I almost want to joke to say that the pastor told the married couple after 40 years, only sex on Sundays, But, we can have a conversation. Life is too big. We're all grown ups here,
Yes, when I was growing up as going to a Catholic school, I was told we couldn't eat meat on I think it was Fridays.
Only fish on Friday.
Well, yeah, exactly. So now, but the Pope decided, no, he was going to revise that rule, so we could eat meat any day, so as long as we ate it to the glory of God. So anyway. So, well, you see, the issue of independence, the right of people to vote, permanent residents to vote, the right of British people to vote, all of those issues which have been discussed in the last 1 week, they're really important and current, I think, because one of the things that from the time I came to Cayman in 2003, and the longer I stayed, there was always this question, the thing that I saw in society, and I'm seeing it a little more now, which is that because of the OT status of Cayman, different categories of people in society have got conflicted. They are either conflicted or they are not conflicted, but they fall on one side. But let me just explain what I mean. If you listen to elected officials, you find very often, not always, sometimes they don't know whether to do what the people in Cayman want or to do what the British government wants. You listen to public officials, also public officials in terms of civil servants, they also sometimes are conflicted. And even the general public sometimes is conflicted. Some people say, well, if we decide to go independent, without the British being there to be our mother country and to ensure that the financial services sector has got confidence because of the British overloading of the whole system. And people say, put it in a nutshell, there's always a bit of a conflict there. And I think it is something that ultimately it has to be determined. And right now, since there is an issue specifically about the Honorable Kenneth Bryon, I was listening to OC's show yesterday, and the Honorable Kenneth Bryon has come out very strongly to say that we need to look at this issue about status grants and PR and so on. Now, people will naturally say, how about you, a foreigner, me? Why have I got a dog in this fight? Well, two things. One, I've got a dog in the fight because I don't like injustice, and some of my friends have been affected. But more than that, I have always felt that I could have contributed more to Cayman in government and outside if Caymanians had been really in charge. And I still feel even today that there are still a lot of things which I could do more than I'm doing now if Caymanians would have been in charge. Because what has happened in Cayman is that a lot of the government institutions making decisions are not Caymanian, and as a result, they make decisions that really are not suiting Caymanians, and they are not suiting people like me, who does see that there's a way I can contribute better if Caymanians would be in charge. And that's exactly what the problem is. Now, who is this judge? The Honorable Kenneth Bryon and the Honorable Seymour were on OC's show, and they said basically that you need to stop granting status, put a moratorium on that. And I know that is going to be a very controversial subject. Honorable Bryon has said, well, look, within the next 2 years, we should do it before the next election. And he's really very articulate and very vociferous about that. And I agree with him on everything except only one thing. I don't think that you should do it in 2 years.
It has to be done now, you think, huh?
Pardon me?
You think it has to be done?
It has to be now. Really, I would put it at 3 to 6 months. 3 to 6 months, you need to put something in place. Now, there will always be issues about if you put, say, a moratorium, and what they were suggesting, I think, was that there should be a moratorium except for marriage and those who claim status by descent. That other than that there should be a moratorium on this and work out the system in such a way that you can bring the figures of indigenous Caymanians up again so that they are in the majority. Now, the problem is, well, not the problem. I want to state the problem and give the solution as well.
Yes, sir.
There will always be people who say, Dwayne, but you can't do this because people who are already here, how can you introduce a new rule in relation to them? People who have already applied, how can you introduce a new rule? And how can you have a moratorium? Legally, there is no problem. Under the law, if you made it clear, you passed a law in Parliament, and you made it clear that this new law, these new requirements for status, this moratorium, it applies to everybody, including people who are already here. And if you wanted to be really draconian, you could say including those people who have actually already applied. So long as the law makes it clear that it applies that way, there is no legal reason to prevent it being done. A lot of people usually say, but you see, if you do it that way, it will be with retrospective effect. It's illegal. No.
Yeah, it's not retrospective.
First of all, it will not be retrospective, one. And two, even if it were to be construed to be retrospective, that is legally allowed. Even in England today, they are still making laws with retrospective effect. What the courts insist is that if you want to make something retrospective, be very clear in the law that you want to make it retrospective, because if you don't, any doubt you leave in the law will be construed in favor of the people who are claiming that human right.
Right.
And the reason I say that is because I know that there are people in government who try to give you wrong advice. I'm giving you the advice that has been given in other jurisdictions.
Yeah. Can I ask you, if you have time, because I think many appreciate, even if they may not necessarily agree with your perspective, they appreciate your willingness to share, and I'm being encouraged by us providing a platform for defending views. Would you be able to just stay on a minute and continue the conversation after this break?
Yeah, I'll be glad to. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Billy. Okay, we're going to pause, and when we come back, there are a lot of things to be shared, so join us right after.
Are you kidding me?
Hey girl, what's wrong?
My eyeliner foundation just ran out and I have to leave Savannah in 15 minutes.
That's easy. Just stop at Savannah Pharmacy. That's where I get all of my makeup, and for a great price too.
Really?
Really, girl. Where are you going?
To Savannah Pharmacy, duh.
Wait, I'm coming too. Ran out of my favorite nail polish.
Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village provides you with more than just prescriptions. Savannah Pharmacy is just around the corner with everything you need and the hours you need it. Visit us today for fast, efficient, and professional service. We are here as a team to assist you while taking care of your health. Call us today at 946-3336.
From boat days to beach gatherings, Leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. For all occasions and celebrations, let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointments.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
What exactly are the steps in the STEPS 2023 National Health Survey? Step 1 is a questionnaire where you'll be asked about your health behaviors and lifestyle choices. Step 2 involves home measurements like height, weight, and blood pressure. Lastly, Step 3 is a finger prick blood sample for cholesterol and glucose. STEPS 2023 starts on June 3rd. Learn more by logging on to www.gov.ky/steps.
You deserve a unique vacation this year, one with easy non-stop flights from Cayman. Cayman Airways offers more non-stop flights to and from the Cayman Islands than any other airline. Now you can add Panama and Los Angeles to your travel bucket list. Skip the hassle of connecting flights. Panama is just a 2-hour non-stop flight from Cayman. And Los Angeles? Get there in less than 5 hours non-stop aboard Cayman Airways. Call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com to book your Los Angeles or Panama getaway today.
The Ministry of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency wants your feedback on the draft National Climate Change Policy. You are invited to join representatives from the Ministry, Department of Environment, Hazard Management, and the National Weather Service at the Aston Ruddy Center at 4 p.m. on Friday, the 26th of May, or Little Cayman Beach Resort from 10:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. on Saturday, the 27th of May, to learn about the draft policy and give your feedback. To view the full list of meeting dates, times, and venues, visit gov.ky/climate change policy. Log on to gov.ky/climate change policy today to learn more.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And it is open line until 1 o'clock. Very, very, very grateful to Mr. Billy Kazamamba for not only sharing his perspective, but for being so amenable and gracious with the time, staying online. Thanks very much, Billy. Thank you very much.
No problem.
And sometimes in conversation, made for television, you gotta interject, other stuff. But we won't. We want to get away from what we're talking. You want to pick up where you were sharing, or you want me to jump in with a question or two?
Well, I was going to pick up on something
Yes, sir.
because I kind of forgot about it. I'm sorry to jump ahead of you like this.
No, you go ahead, man.
Now, let me say this. It won't sound good, okay? But I want to say it lovingly and in the most friendly manner possible to all Caymanians who are listening to this.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have control of your country anymore. I know that people are saying, well, let's do something about it, before it's too late. No. It is already too late. So you have to understand that what has to be done has to be so drastic so that you can have a little bit more of control. Now, Cayman can never be like Jamaica, which is you go to Jamaica, everybody you meet is Jamaican. Cayman can never be like that anymore. But what you want to do is you want to be able to work out certain policies which will bring your country to ensure that you are always a majority. Maybe if you can bring it up to about 70% Caymanian and 30% people from outside, which you can work out through certain policies. That's what you want. So I just want to emphasize that there is the control has already been lost. The only place where you do see some semblance of control is in Parliament. Now, in Parliament, when you go to Parliament, you know you're in Cayman, okay? But you go to the airport, you could be anywhere in the world. You go to the hotels, you could be anywhere in the world. You go to the beach, even if it's not summer, you could be anywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even so sure that the people in Parliament are as in control as we would like to think they are. And I say this with the utmost respect to all serving members, past and present, who have done good things over the years.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, none of the governments have done that which is necessary, that is to reverse this trend, which is that Caymanians have become minority. Yeah.
If I may ask, how do we, I'll hopefully repeat exactly, we reverse this trend. How do we do that? When we look at the latest census data, let's go on the premise that it's accurate. How do we reverse that? Forget about the number of work permits, just look at the people who are considered Caymanian, whether generational or by some other means. Look at the origin of birth and all those things. How do we reverse that trend? Is it possible at this stage?
Well, I think it is possible, and the solution has already been worked out by Caymanians themselves. So all I would do here is I would quote a certain candidate. I won't name him because I haven't got his consent to mention it.
Yes, sir.
But there was a certain candidate who ran in 2017, and he is a guy who is not anti-foreigner at all. I mean, that's why I'm good friends with him among other people and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But what he suggested was, look, let us work out a system whereby we ensure that the number of people being born in or of Caymanians that put it the other way. Let us not grant PR and status to a number of people which is higher than the number of people who are being born in Cayman.
Okay.
Okay? So what you do is you establish a percentage. You say, okay, fine. What will be the number of kids who are likely to be born, I don't know, in 1 year, say 2,000, okay?
Uh-huh.
And you work on that figure. Then you say, then, that being the case, we are not going to grant status and PR to people who are more than 2,000 people. So what you would do is you would grant, say, to about maybe 600. You see, it can't be just maybe 900 or so. Like, grant to people 600. What it means is, therefore, that at the end of that, those other people will be rolled in. As a result, you will be reversing the trend so that the population increase is more from the local people and by a large percentage, and then you can reverse it now.
Uh-huh.
What that would mean is that the way you limit status and PR, maybe some people have suggested, again, this is not my original idea,
Mm.
Caymanians have suggested that at the end of the rollover period, you can have a lottery.
Mm-hmm.
To say that there will be 600 granted and they are put in the lottery. If yours comes out, you can apply. If it doesn't come out, you are rolled over.
Yeah.
That's one of the ways it can be done.
Yeah. But I mean, not because I'm not on a personal level that open to games of chance, right? I like proper analysis. And if we're playing with people's lives, and also if we're playing with the composition of our society, the disposition of the people therein, and the potential social ethos that will result therefrom, maybe we need to be specific. We got 10,000 people we're evaluating. We only want 10, right? There are many who would say, but that takes too much time. To me, listen, you ever go shopping for that perfect ingredient, for that perfect recipe, because it's your dad's birthday, your mama's birthday, man, you want to make that cake come out special? You just don't accept anything, right? So why don't we go through the 10,000 and we say, listen, you know what? We can only find 5, and we're looking for people of this. No, it becomes subjective in every manner, and hiding behind a lot of a system takes away, boy, just a game of chance, it was just fair. No, man, be deliberate, specific. We're looking for this kind of thing. Could we not do that?
Yes, we could. We could, although that would be a little more subjective, and it will take more in terms of a system.
Right.
But another way it could be done is you could say, okay, fine. You maintain the point system. I believe it will soon be revised. You maintain the point system, but you let everybody apply like from the beginning of the year up to the end of the year, and they get their points. And then you will say that we will grant to those who have the largest number of points like the first 600 with the highest number of points. Okay, so that in other words, you don't have like the way they have it now to say you have to get, if you get 110, you get it. You just say, well, look, you will all get your points, and at the end of the year, we will pick the ones who have gotten the top 600 who have gotten the most points, because those are the people who have shown that either they have more to contribute or more of a Caymanian connection and so on. Because that way, then you don't have to do it by lottery. Although I know that lottery kind of cheapens it a little bit. Although I know the U.S. has an immigrant visa lottery. I know that. So that's another way in which it could be done.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it has to be done.
Okay, so maybe, and that's why I enjoy listening to you, because I don't believe anybody will take what you're saying as being inflammatory or inciting, but it is always insightful, right? So let me ask then, the point system, whether it's revised or not, could it not be, as someone suggested, like on an exam, you can lose points? Could it not be that you're not only going to gain points, you can lose points if you do this or that or the next thing? Could that not all be a part of the point system if we keep that?
Yes, once you are in the area of a point system, yes, there's all kinds of things you can do to it. You know, I mean, at the moment, for example, okay, if you commit an offense, then that certain kinds of offense, yeah,
but it doesn't.
Then you'll be removed totally. Yeah, sometimes I mean, I think depending on what you commit, there's some rule there that you can be disqualified by virtue of what you've committed. But there are some times when maybe you do something a little bit negative. Maybe you haven't committed an offense which is deportable, put it that way, maybe it's careless driving or something. You can find a way, yes,
right,
to deal with certain issues relating to character. They can be a little bit controversial, a little bit difficult to narrow down.
Right.
But all those things can be worked into the point system. I'll be very interested to see Dr. Steve and his team's report on what they have recommended regarding the point system. But what I would say more generally is that what needs to be done at the moment is a more fundamental change in the system towards achieving certain targets of population growth and the type of population growth that is required. These other incidental measures, such as negative points, how many points you get, and all these other things can be incidental to that central aim.
Can I crave your indulgence and beg the listeners and the callers online just for 1 second? Let me ask of you then. Two things going on, what we all have heard and probably repeated: the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Right. So
yes,
if we can grant citizenship status, whatever way we term it, can we not take it away?
Yes, you can take it away, but there are limits to that, because, like at the moment, for example, under the Immigration Transitional Law, as you know, it can be revoked only on certain grounds.
So maybe we need to expand those grounds.
Well,
just questions.
You need, you can expand those grounds. They won't apply to those who have already gotten status.
Not retroactive. No.
Yeah, because we see once they've got status, then they have a right. Then you can only withdraw it in accordance with the law. It's different from those people who are applying or haven't applied or are just in Cayman. That is not a problem. But once, because those don't have any right yet. But once people have got status, then you can. You can only withdraw those, but you can expand those grounds. You are right. You can expand them in terms of how you revoke.
So let me then ask. This is where this is healthy discussion. It may offend some people, right? I know that commercial breaks get in the way of conversation sometimes, but we're so grateful to our advertisers. There's much more I want to ask of you, but maybe I'm bending your ear too much. So we'll pick that up at another time, perhaps.
Yes, let's pick it up another time. It's been very great today, and thanks for the time.
No, thank you, sir. And with that, I ask our listeners to join us after the break or call us online. Please join us right after.
Here at Savannah Pharmacy, our pharmacists do a lot more than just count out your pills and fill prescriptions. They undergo extensive education in the study of how the human body uses and responds to medicine. They have also built up years of experience in real-life counseling on how to take medication safely. Our pharmacists are on the front lines in keeping our society healthy. Don't risk it or hesitate. Contact us or schedule a consultation with one of our pharmacists today. At Savannah Pharmacy, we care about your health.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointments.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
You deserve a unique vacation this year, one with easy non-stop flights from Cayman. Cayman Airways offers more non-stop flights to and from the Cayman Islands than any other airline. Now you can add Panama and Los Angeles to your travel bucket list. Skip the hassle of connecting flights. Panama is just a 2-hour non-stop flight from Cayman. And Los Angeles? Get there in less than 5 hours non-stop aboard Cayman Airways. Call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com to book your Los Angeles or Panama getaway today.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
The Cayman Islands Baptist Church Super Ginormous Mega Fundraiser will be taking place Saturday, May 27th. Mom, Dad, a dream come true. You do not have to cook. They will be serving breakfast and lunch. Don't have to wash your car either because they will be having a car wash-a-thon. Keep the budget in check. With this ginormous garage sale, Cayman Islands Baptist Church 3-in-1 food, car wash, and garage sale fundraiser. Proceeds supports the Cayman Islands Baptist Church Youth Ministry. Is taking place Saturday, May 27th from 6 a.m. until 12 p.m. Located at 163 Peter Castle Road.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks, for listening and for sharing. And as I'm instructed, we've got some calls. Let's go to the phones. Welcome. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Sterling.
Good afternoon, young lady. How are you today?
Oh, not too bad.
Good to hear from you too, Mom. Thank you for calling.
Thank you. Sterling, I know nothing about politics, so don't drill me, okay? I'm going to say a few things. I don't have an answer for everything that I may say, okay?
Okay, no, you share. I want to listen. You share.
Well, I was just, I just asked you to turn the radio on, and I was hearing your last caller, and he made a good point when he said that, it's too late to come in, and I really feel for myself the way that things are going, because I was trying to listen to the show yesterday for the record, and their conversation it was throwing me off and on, and the little bit that I did hear, I couldn't really see in the future there for the few Cayman that we got left. All I could hear was population, and someone asked a question in regards to when someone is working on a work permit and they're terminated. And I can't say word for word, but I think it was the why the person is still here or why the person can get another job elsewhere. And one of the ministers said that we have to really know what the situation was before you can really go and say, well, we have to get rid of that individual off the island. You understand?
Yes, ma'am.
So, Sterling, I come to the conclusion that this island is so hungry for population, and we're not looking at the damage that is happening to this so small island. When we do reach 100,000 people, and when they get 100,000, they ain't gonna stop. They're gonna continue. And those that all the expats here, they're having babies left, right, and center. So, before 2025 election, we're gonna be over 100,000 and change the people on this island.
Well, it's looking like, not just as I'm listening to you and reading what one of our listeners shared, I'll paraphrase, that it's not only that we're growing the population in terms of increased numbers, we're consciously, unconsciously, deliberately, inadvertently, otherwise just ignoring the consequences of what we're doing. And to read what this person said, we just keep kicking the can down the road.
It's true, and it's true. And it's going to get worse. And Sterling, it just seems like, don't care what government we get, because all we do is sit down here and criticize every government and go in there. And I don't know what's going to take to get some listening ears on this island for the population. And I want to say this, and I hope that I don't get cut off, but the people that we are inviting to our island to become business owners and become a citizen and a resident of this island, it makes you wonder who's gaining from it, because I can't see my island being into a degree in the morning, going probably to the grocery store and paying a water bill and trying to raise in their department to get by, and then they're going to fly their flags, and they're going to fly their flags, and then they're going to fill up their country, and then take this little one and run it down to the child, run no more. Sterling, it is just so sad what is happening in this island, and all you can hear is population, and we have to come to a halt. And like that gentleman said a while ago, it's too late. I really it hit me when he said it. And by me listening to what I was listening to yesterday, was the pile of rubbish I'm concerned. I don't care who like it and who don't like it. The pile of rubbish. If you don't have anything to bring to your people, you don't open your mouth.
Yeah.
Keep
Well,
your mouth closed.
I think, there are many of us who would say that. All right. Got the news in a minute, but I want to take this other caller. Can we pick it up again?
Sure.
All right.
Another time.
So call it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, I've got 3 people messaging saying, hey, they can't get through. So try again. We are on this end, and Miss Susan is credible and competent and absolutely honest. The phones are not ringing over here. So for those who are, I can't tell you what's what. And 949-6990, 949-8837, the toll-free line. Oh boy. This is where I think, like the callers prior, including not just today but other days, if we don't have that sense of a healthy democracy and a corresponding sense of responsibility to engage, even when we know that it may be our closest friends and family who may feel offended and slighted because we take a dissenting view, or that we question them, not that we don't believe them, we just want to verify. Hey, that has to happen for us to be mature and responsible. Hey, good afternoon, welcome, thanks for calling.
Hello, good afternoon, Sterling.
Hey, if you don't mind me saying publicly, good afternoon, my good friend. How are you?
No, I don't mind. I'm doing good, given thanks.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Yeah, I was just listening to the 2 previous callers. Obviously, the one before Miss Jan was talking, in great detail about how we could probably go about putting a moratorium down. But there's one thing I would respectfully disagree with when he says that it's too late, because in my personal opinion, it's never too late to do the right thing. And even if it's at a point where it's going to be extremely difficult in order to implement the things that we need moving forward, because we hear a lot of talk about who we're developing for and sustainable Cayman, and it's hard to have a sustainable Cayman with no Caymanian brand on it. So I just think that we got to stop dancing around the issue and trying to encapsulate all those people that we may offend by doing the right thing for the Caymanian brand. Putting a moratorium down on permanent residences and status grants, I totally 100% agree. And we need to do it right now. We don't need to wait on it. And then this thing about giving people a lottery at the end of their rollover, no. I think the half of the reason why we are where we are now is because we've been way too complacent.
Yeah.
We've been way too nice, and there's nothing wrong with being nice, but when it's not being reciprocated to us, being the host of all of these different multicultural environments, we starting to feel the real impacts of it, not only in our pocketbooks, but in our social environment. Everybody that objects to anything to go on in Cayman is those people who come here and call Cayman home.
Yeah.
So now, what are we going to do? Are we going to morph into the countries in which they abandon to come here? I don't understand why that's the narrative that is being profoundly put out front of everything that we want to do, and we somehow become subjected to it because we don't want to offend them.
You see, this is where I think it's so commendable that people like you, the other callers, and every day people are sharing what they want. Maybe it's unfortunate as a people we no longer want to hear the message because we're so focused on the messenger. All right?
Well, no, you're absolutely right. And the thing is that when the minute any Caymanian, no matter who you are, gets up on a public platform and say, hey, I think we need to try and recognize who we are first before we can inject anybody else, then we become anti-foreigner. Listen, if there's any place on this planet that is not anti-foreigner, it's the Cayman Islands. We should be the poster child for not being anti-foreigner.
Exactly.
We got 130 different nationalities here who are now influencing everything that we do.
Yeah. But you know what's interesting, right? As I listen to all you and I look at a couple of messages, primarily in my circle, and I limit it to my circle, the people who are telling us privately and publicly that we need to address immigration, development, and all those issues are not Caymanians or generation Caymanians. It's primarily the foreign national. Now, some of them have said when we say that, we get accused by our own and other foreign nationals, oh, you got yours now, you don't want nobody to get. But again, just limited to my circle. These are people who are saying that the beauty that they saw in Cayman just even 10 years ago is lost. The friendliness, the safety, the sense of serenity. And if these people are telling us this for decades and we're not listening, what your mama say, you can't hear but you can feel?
But you got to remember the persons who come to Cayman and call Cayman home and make Cayman their final resting place. These are the people, or those are the persons who have had the opportunity to experience Cayman for what it truly was.
Yeah.
And certainly let it not be lost in translation that they are also very aware of the people where they come from and their behavior and what would happen if they had too many of them coming in here.
Yep.
So yeah, there'll be huge advocates to keep Cayman on a tight lid simply because they want to keep it to the way they've seen it to enjoy it.
Exactly.
So let us not make any mistake that you have those people out there, those persons in our society. But where do we carve out what we want Cayman to look like, feel like, and be like in the future, and do it unapologetic so that we can legislate proper laws without thinking that we're offending a certain group of people. I heard the gentleman on earlier saying that there are ways to do it without, and he's absolutely right. I'm not disagreeing with some of the ideas that he put out there. I am simply saying is that we got to stop this apologetic approach. We need to put a moratorium down. I support, and you heard me say this for years, I support Kenneth and the other minister for saying this is what we need to do, but we got to do it now.
Yeah.
Because we haven't been able to properly digest the already, overflooding of cultural differences on our island, and we're having a hard time. And now when we look at all of the committees and the boards and the institutions who are governing this country, it's filled with all of these people who have an outside view of what Cayman is. And we're not going to get any real results in regards to, okay, what are we going to develop into in the next 50 to 100 years? Everything is gauged on a 4-year election term. And that's that's been the most undermining thing in this country for the last 50 years.
Yeah, man.
But no one seems to want to come from under that cover and cloak of propaganda that is being spread to everybody here in Cayman. And I'm telling you, I'm tired of it because every setting, I sit down and I listen to people telling another group, oh, well, how long you been here? Oh, I only been here for 2 months. But you know how easy it was? And I got my cousin coming, and I'm sitting here saying to myself, a Caymanian can't go away and get a degree in anything and come back home and get placed in a job as easily as these people who just get off their couch from wherever they're from around the world, and in 6 months they're so comfortable in Cayman that they experience in the Caymanian dreams while the Caymanian still dreaming about the dream.
And nightmares, huh?
And we got to stop that. I don't care what no lawyer or no politician say. We need to put the moratorium down, and I don't care who get offended. Too bad. Just got to get used to it. Anyway, have a good one.
My friend, thank you very much. And with that, let's pause and take the break. When we come back, join us.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
The headline news is brought to you by Health Services Authority.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Zollins. The Department of Vehicle and Driver's Licensing advises the public that the Crew Road inspection pit will be closed at 3 p.m. on Tuesday, May 23rd, to facilitate setting up for Customer Appreciation Day on May 24th. Customers are encouraged to visit the breakers location during this time. In international news, France has banned domestic short-haul flights where train alternatives exist in a bid to cut carbon emissions. The law came into force 2 years after lawmakers had voted to end routes where the same journey could be made by train in under 2.5 hours. The ban all but rules out air travel between Paris and cities including Nantes, Lyon, and Bordeaux, while connecting flights are unaffected. Critics have described the latest measures as symbolic bans. Prince Harry has lost a legal challenge over his bid to be allowed to make private payments for police protection. His lawyers wanted a judicial review of the rejection of his offer to pay for protection in the UK after his security arrangements changed when the prince stopped being a working royal. But a judge has ruled not to give the go-ahead for such a hearing. Home Office lawyers had opposed the idea of allowing wealthy people to buy security from police. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Zollins.
For the latest in news and information,
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
The headline news are brought to you by Health Services Authority.
HSA's cardiology clinic is now located at Smith Road Medical Center. Our cardiology team provides expert care and treatment for heart conditions such as coronary artery disease, heart failure, arrhythmias, hypertension, congenital heart diseases, among others. The new location offers state-of-the-art cardiac diagnostic testing, including echocardiograms, ECGs, and stress tests. To contact, call 949-8600. At HSA, your heart matters to us.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of District Administration and Lands. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands. Hinton Roxroy Connolly was born in Creek, Cayman Brac on the 9th of September 1937. The second of 8 children born to Henry Kitchener Connolly and Olive Connolly, fondly known as Big H to his family and friends. Like so many other Caymanian boys and men, young Hinton went to sea at the tender age of 17, working with national bulk carriers for 5 years. During his tenure at sea, Hinton sailed on many different ships, namely the Ulysses, Old Titan, St. Clair, Petrolor, Petra Sea, and Petra King. He sailed between Portland, Maine to Venezuela. Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of District Administration and Lands. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands, the ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom, the land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your Sister Islands.
Discover all that our Sister Islands have to offer.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And as much as it was truly an inspiring, enlightening, and certainly informative discussion earlier, we now have scheduled Dr. Bryon Coon, the president of International College of the Cayman Islands, for, according to my clock, just less than 23 minutes of discussion. So thank you for making a few minutes. Welcome back and good afternoon to you.
Well, thank you very much. It's always good to be here. Yeah.
If I might, through you, and I say this with great respect from two perspectives. One, you're a little bit older than me, and I think that I would want to believe that in our society we respect our parents because they are figures of authority, and we have utmost respect for those who have life experience beyond ours, that we listen to them. And secondly, as an educator, we hear that education is not only empowering, it's a great equalizer, but education should not only be academic. And looking at our discussion yesterday with our folks from Public Works, with their skills training competition, and we tend to generally, both as the parent and as the politician, we talk about technical and vocational training, and we talk about academic education, and I've always struggled with that, because my friends, my family, who can go to the boat and put down the engine and make it work, can look at the car, whether it's body fill or whether it's the fiberglassing of the boat hull, or anything. That's intelligence beyond anything else. And I say this because I want us to get to a space where we value opinion and dissension, but respect and responsibility. And until the gentleman yesterday, Dr. Andy, shared, the surgeon, when he said but when she is in the operating theater, that is technical and vocational education. That's a level of instruction, because just like the electrician who is looking at circuitry and going, I need to collect that wire to that wire so we don't blow a fuse, but we don't set the place on fire.
Right.
That surgeon, she needs to make sure, that needs to go back there. I need to, plumb that little piece there. If we don't see those two as being significantly equal in terms of intelligence and ability and aptitude, something's fundamentally wrong with us. So, as a tertiary institution, ICCI has produced many, not just a Caymanian, but in a region with a skill set, with employability, with confidence, to that person who wants upward mobility, to the person who says, I wanted this thing because I promised my mother or grandmother, or because I felt it gave me validation. It just gave me a sense of accomplishment. And it's down the road. Well, take that and run with it, sir.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't mind, telling you my age. I'm 73.
You told me that before.
Yeah, yes.
So I said slightly older.
And when I was growing up, and we've talked just recently, there were no gender jobs, and everybody pulled together as a team. In our house, and if my mother needed help, my dad would pull us from the field and say, you need to go in and help your mom. That's where I learned to cook. And my dad says, okay, I need you to go out and fix that lawnmower, that Briggs & Stratton engine.
That's what you had to.
Yeah, and I'm going, well, how do I know what's wrong with it? He goes, you'll know when you get in it.
Yeah, you feel it.
You'll just know. And so, what I appreciate about the mission of ICCI is that our mission statement actually is all about the education instilling attitudes, behaviors, sensitivities, skills, and knowledge that are essential to life and learning. And it's not all about, I can give most people a textbook and say, okay, we're going to have a quiz tomorrow on chapter 1. They can go read chapter 1 and come back and do a quiz.
Regurgitate what they read.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, but what we bring into the classroom is, this is what you can expect in the real world. Let's take what the skills are that we're learning, and now how would you handle this? And it's all about how would you approach this in real life. And so we're wanting our graduates to leave with that kind of sense, because this is the next generation that's going to be leading this wonderful nation. It really is.
But Dr. Coon, with that, if I'm understanding what you're sharing, as my friend says, if I'm picking up what you're putting down, critical thinking skills.
Yes.
Right? That's what we want. As parents, we're asking the teacher, and as policymakers, we spout and expound from the pulpit and from the platform. Yes, we're going to develop the 21st century. But yet, that's not what we're doing in action. The child in the classroom who says, teacher, you said this, but what about that? Potentially disruptive. Sorry, your parents who want me to teach you critical thinking need us to get through the curriculum, because that's how I'm going to be evaluated, so you can pass the test and get an A. So that child who is asking, the precocious student, asking the questions, well, why? We see them as disruptive, annoying, right? And yet, later on in life, the critical thinker, the scientist, is now become a conspiracy theorist. So, what is it that we're doing?
Well, number one is that the instructors that we have are adjunct instructors, and they come from the real world. They are working in the real world.
Okay.
They are bringing that into the classrooms, and they're saying, okay, and they keep going down the line, and they'll answer why as many as times as is needed. And because we could sit here, you and I, and for every answer you give me, I can say why.
Yeah.
And do you know what the hardest challenge I had? I taught third grade for 1 year, and they chewed me up and spit me out for breakfast so easy. I'm telling you. And I had a student said, prove to me that 2 + 2 = 4.
Yeah. That was an inquiring student of mine.
It wasn't, and I was just like, "Why? What do you mean prove?" And we take for granted, we'd say, "Okay, 2 + 2 is 4." But for somebody who is wanting concrete evidence,
I think that's when I looked to history, and because at that time I was sort of coming of age, so to speak. U.S. President Ronald Reagan. One of the reasons I liked him, the Gipper had little anecdotes. He gave you a little joke. Maybe I think it was the fact that he studied economics. Maybe some say he was an actor. Who knows, right? The politician actor, one and the same. But in his banter with the then Russian President Gorbachev, he would say, trust but verify. Dobanaya no probanaya. We're not doing that. We're not verifying. And because when we do, we ridicule and ostracize. Look at this last 3 years. The most celebrated scientist, most popular politician, the probably widest known celebrity that asks a question that isn't from the same hymnal is somehow maligned. In the past, they were celebrated, or they could say the stupidest thing and they were laughed at. But now, the semblance of some sort of inquiry is met with contempt. And I say that to ask our people, have we gotten to a space that even in the classroom, the perhaps the safest of spaces, but for when the congregation meets in the sanctuary, you should be able to ask each other as students and as the lecturer, professor, whatever term that person is, a question. Why is 2 + 2, not 5?
Right.
Why is it that we're doing it this way and not that way? What if we did it this way? Because that leads to innovation through inquiry. It leads to great exploration, independence of thought,
creativity, flexibility,
satisfaction. We know that. But the minute we attempt to demonstrate it, I'm not a betting man, but I'll tell you with the greatest degree of probability, you try that today, and you're on your own, Bobo.
Yeah, well, way back in the day, when they introduced, they called it new math. And I'm talking back in the early 60s and stuff, and I thought, new math, what is that? And it really turned out to be algebra.
Yeah.
And so what I did is that the teacher who was come out of college and was trained in the new math, she says, okay, and she did this 2x + y = whatever, yada, yada, yada. And I was just like, I was out to lunch. And I was trying to figure that out, and I did ask this question, and it stumped her so bad, and it was, okay, I'm gonna go to the market, I'm gonna buy 5 pounds of tomatoes. How can I use that to help me?
Yeah.
And she just looked at me and was kind of like, but you're not supposed to ask that question.
That's it.
And no, but I will ask that question, because I need to know how it's applicable to me and how I can take and use it,
Here's something that I've always said, and I find that, like the scripture, there are many an answer in song.
Yeah.
I like country songs, and even though it's not a country song, Michael Jackson had a song about a man in the mirror. And I always thought that there's something about those lyrics. And oftentimes we don't look enough at the man in the mirror or the woman. Just take the scripture. Stop looking at that little, speck in your brother's eye and ignore the plank in your own.
Right.
And in saying that, I've asked myself, what was it about certain classes from early on in school? And increasingly, I'm willing to share publicly because I'm looking for counsel, guidance, direction. I don't need validation. Right? Good to get a compliment, but spend time with me is even better. In my geography class, I absolutely found it to be the most, it was not my favorite, put it that nicely, because of the teaching method, right? You had a blackboard, The teacher would write down, and you were expected to take copious notes and write down everything verbatim, put the comma where it was, and it was a waste of time. I could read it. There were 15 sentences, 2 words that made sense, that gave me the picture reading. That was enough, a symbol. In the economics class, that's what I got. I got a chance to read, to ask questions. Did it challenge the teacher? I'm sure it did. Did it teach me a lot? Great. That interaction. So we all learn differently. And to your point, when you ask your teacher at that age and it stumped her, that was in the 60s, right?
Yes.
We fast forward now to, is it the 21st century in Buck Rogers? Have we really advanced in our teaching, whether it's in primary school or whether it's at university?
Well, I'm thinking that as time goes forward, I think hopefully more people will not substitute IT. You understand? And let's talk about using, like calculators in the classroom and stuff, okay? The calculator is no good unless you know what the process is to put it in.
Exactly.
Okay, so if you can mentally do this, I don't have an issue with students using to get the right answer, because the right answer is what really matters when you're making decisions.
Right.
Okay. Now, you need to know how to do certain things on a manual basis, but I'm thinking that more teaching institutions now who are teaching teachers are actually starting to bring in the world into the classroom because they're finding that what they've been doing and what they had done is not working.
Yeah. I commend every opportunity that we've had with our good friends from the early childhood education to remind us of the importance of teaching that. This is where, when I hear people talk about soft skills, I thought, those are not soft skills, those are essential. Those are good manners, but they're essential. So with that in mind, I'm inclined to share that as we look at where we are, to your point with the calculator, my friends who are accountants, whether they're CAs or CPAs or wherever, they got a spreadsheet, they hit the function button to sum it up, and it comes to a number. And they accept it. How many are actually looking at it and going, well, that's not right? Because somewhere the formula maybe left at a cell, or something is off. Or even if it's function and all the cells are tabulated, you, in inputting the data, you put a 7 as opposed to a 1. If you don't know what it's supposed to be, you can't look at it mentally and say, well, something's not right here. You can't have 10,000 widgets, and then when you count it up, you got 1,000. Something's wrong. But we accept it because, well, we hit the calculator, we hit the spreadsheet. We've gotten from where we were to where we are now. Do we need to reverse it? Do we acknowledge that we've made those mistakes, as you said, and insist that we correct it?
Right. Well, my son has his doctorate in physics. He's a physicist. He's about 12.
Theoretical physicist?
Well, he's in matter.
Oh, cool.
He deals with quantum matter and stuff. Yeah. And he was very accustomed to using, IT.
Yeah.
He's 41 now.
My age.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Hey!
No.
We're friends, man.
Yeah. No. But I've had students at other colleges where I worked, and they would say, I just can't get the physics. I'd turn them on to my son.
Yeah.
And my son said, picture this. My dad always made us, we had chores to do. Imagine you had to do this chore, okay? And he would link it to how the leverage and the whole 9 yards. And then they walked away. And this one student that we had, his mother was the dean of the college. And she said, I can't tell you how great it was that my son Matthew met your son Matthew. And your son taught him how to not get out of the textbooks.
Yes.
And really apply it to everyday stuff. And so that was, to me, I think, was an eye-opener of, I think, how good my son was as far as teaching.
Connecting to the student.
Right? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And he found their need, and he filled it.
See, this is where I have the utmost respect for parents and educators, and educators who are parents. And this is where sometimes I recognize the passion I have for it can get some people a little bit too, I want to say always offended almost, because without education, knowledge, understanding, you really have no insight. And we need to respect that more. And investment isn't only with the money or the buildings. It's with what you just shared your son has done. Hey, that's the textbook. How do I make this relevant? Just like what you said, the 5 pounds of tomatoes. Relevancy. Make it relatable.
Right.
And this is why I think ICCI, and with respect to you, what UCCI was in the early days, was sort of as a community college. A space where you can learn, a space where you can express and create, but a space where you feel not just empowered but nurtured. And with that, you can then go into the world or back into your home and have a sense of accomplishment. So where we are now with upcoming graduation, with all of the history and the decades behind us, take a few of the remaining moments and share with us, because I'm excited. I'll genuinely have a passion for learning.
Right. Well, number one is I think learning starts in the home. Absolutely, hands down. And I think sometimes today, I think parents who are of my parents' generation, if you will. I'm 73, and both my parents are gone, But even with my generation, I think sometimes parents, feel like they're not able to sit down and take the current lessons that the kids are learning and how to apply it, because they come from the old school of learning. And I think in our classrooms we have to be careful that we make it applicable, like you're saying, so that if they go home and ask a question, I used to think my dad, I'd go home and ask my dad, he knew everything. And when we got to a certain place, he was going, son, I never had a dad, I can't help you with that, I didn't know what that means. So I'm thinking that it's okay for students to know that, you know what, I think I'll call ICCI and just see if they got a tutor that can help me. Well, good news is we do have a tutor, and don't be afraid to ask for help so you don't, advance your own understanding, okay? And so I'd like to say that ICCI really, we try to engage and connect with making communities better. And we form partnerships with a lot of different entities here in the Cayman Islands that we work alongside of them. We try to make the professional realm as comfortable as possible, and I want to give a shout out to Colleen Williams. She, you know who Colleen is? Yes, right. And she is heading up the SHRM initiative for ICCI, and what they do is that they teach she gets these facilitators who are SHRM, and that stands for
Human Resource Management.
Right, and she gets them, and they facilitate the classes that readies these people working in HR for taking the big SHRM exam, and we have an 80% pass rate.
Awesome.
And I'm encouraging those students out there who would like to get their SHRM, the people working in, the in the industry out here in public and the private sector, that if you desire to get the SHRM designation, we're starting our 5th cohort this September. Okay.
Well, you can thank Miss Marlin, because she has reminded many of us of the offerings from time to time.
Yes.
Independent of her job, so that's awesome as well.
Right, and also the Honorable Franz Manderson is going to be the guest speaker at the SHRP conference this Friday.
I can't miss an opportunity to offer a joke. Despite that, still a 10.
Yeah, exactly. And I love their theme this year, and it's called Human.
Yeah.
And so it's really going to be very nice. They're going to cover topics of heroes, united, mindful, authentic, and nurturing. And so that's really going to be, I think, an exciting conference. We are a sponsor of that conference because we do teach the SHRM classes to ready people in the communities here to sit for the SHRM exam. But we really want to make all the communities better and the people who live in it, and to bring a certain level of engagement.
As I look, and I don't wish to meld the two by any
Sure.
means, because I see them as complementary, not competitive. UCCI and ICCI, so I look at, I still hold the view that unlike many jurisdictions, education in Cayman is still not elitist. It's still very accessible.
Right.
We may not see it who live and work here, but there are many who come from the region in North America, and not just because of the weather, but they see it as accessible, they see it as equalizing and empowering, and they can get their education because perhaps where they're from is not as accessible. And I would say that to ask us as a society to invest, to support, the fundraisers, to, maybe create an endowment when we can, to champion government to allocate funds. But for us as students to register and attend classes, just because, we wanted to always look at some, I don't know.
Well, I go back to the corporate social responsibility, and that's where employers actually, and I said that this morning when I was being interviewed, is that employer, if you have somebody in your employing agency that you would really, really like to see advance, and they can't afford, I did it with nurses back in the States. If they wanted to truly get their nursing, they signed an agreement with me. I would provide their tuition, but you would sign a contract to work with me for 5 years or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so it was a win-win. Situation. So I'm really asking employers to really look at your organization and really start thinking about, because you got some very bright minds out here.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, in the Caymans, I have seen some of the bright minds that come, and they're just wishing that they could afford to go to school.
Yeah, man. Thank you for what you just did, because this has been over a quarter century since I've done it. That's the greatest reward and joy I've ever had, to assist someone in their educational pursuits at tertiary level.
Right.
And 25 plus years on, I'm still being thanked. I see the fruits of that. And it's not a sacrifice. It's a significant investment. And for us to have ICCI at our doorstep, maybe it's time that we start to appreciate what has grown within and stop celebrating the stupid that's without. Dr. Coon, always a pleasure. There could be 5 hours and we still would not have sufficient time.
Never enough time.
Right.
Never enough time.
Any final thoughts you may want to leave with our listeners, sir?
Yeah, I just want people to know that ICCI is out there. We're doing great things. We got a lot of new programs. Contact the director of admission. The phone number is 947-1100. And talk to Marilyn Whitaker. She's our director of admissions, and just find out what we got going on, the programs and stuff. And I'm going to plug this one because I teach it, and it's community health.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I'm just saying, really contact her and see what's happening.
Well, thank you very much, and if I might thank our very own Miss Anita for helping us to facilitate this discussion.
Yes.
Education, my mother has always said, it continues to say, she points to her head. She uses her right index finger, and she points to the temple and says, once you get it here, nobody can take it from you.
That is right.
And that is so true.
And same with a degree. Once you get your degree, nobody can take
it's
it.
Yours for life.
Yes.
What you do with it is up to you.
Yes, that's right.
Dr. Coon, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Stay young, healthy.
Oh, yeah, I will.
And God bless us in our endeavors to empower, educate, nurture, and transform our society.
Absolutely.
All right.
All day.
Well, when we come back, I told you who the guests were at the beginning. Are you going to be reminded as who they are now? Find out when you join us after the break.
They say variety is the spice of life. And that's why at Subway, we're introducing the new Boneless Hot Sub. Say what? The premium sub brings new ingredients like spicy breaded boneless chicken, French's crispy fried onions, and buffalo wing sauce, bringing a zesty and flavorful experience with every bite. Add some of your favorite veggies, cheese, and ranch sauce of your choice of freshly baked bread for the ultimate boneless hot sub. For a little spice in your life, try the new boneless hot sub from Subway.
So good and tasty.
And make it a meal with a drink and chips or cookies. Subway. Eat fresh.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray, and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable. MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Now, more than ever, supporting your immune system is crucial to helping your body fight off illnesses like the common cold, the flu, and COVID-19. At ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road and in Boddentown, we carry all the essential vitamins and minerals to help support your immune system and improve your overall health. Some of our top immunity support picks are vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, elderberry, and quercetin, or the popular 7-in-1 immunity support. Our pharmacists are always on hand to help guide you and answer any questions. Visit ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road or Boddentown. Live happy, live healthy with ValueMed Pharmacy.
You deserve a unique vacation this year, one with easy non-stop flights from Cayman. Cayman Airways offers more non-stop flights to and from the Cayman Islands than any other airline. Now you can add Panama and Los Angeles to your travel bucket list. Skip the hassle of connecting flights. Panama is just a 2-hour non-stop flight from Cayman. And Los Angeles? Get there in less than 5 hours non-stop aboard Cayman Airways. Call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com to book your Los Angeles or Panama getaway today.
The Department of Agriculture is hosting its 4-day home gardening course on Saturdays from the 6th to the 27th of May from 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. This course is ideal for backyard farmers seeking to add value to their crops or individuals interested in starting or improving their garden at home. Seats are limited and the cost is $50 per person, so register today. Visit the DOA website, doa.gov.ky, or their Facebook or Instagram page at Agriculture Cayman to register.
1 pack of cigarettes costs around $13. Let's add it up. 3 packs a day, 7 days a week for 52 weeks equals more than $13,000 a year. That's your dream vacation. That's a down payment to your plot of land. That's the cost for a full or partial renovation to your home, or even starting your own business. So you'd rather give up those dreams and ambitions to smoke? Really? Seriously. Smoking can cost you more than your savings. It can cost you your health. Join the Public Health Department's smoking cessation program by calling 244-2889 to register. Our next class begins May 31st. This message is brought to you by the Public Health Department in conjunction with the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks very much for joining us, and I am so grateful that perhaps my behavior off air doesn't influence my assessment, my pay increases and evaluations. Hopefully not. No, I say that in jest because it's so wonderful to have an environment where you can learn through laughter. Many of us are very serious in our lives and, shh, I'm taking notes, be quiet. And then there are those of us, the classroom has to be a little bit light, a little jovial. And the teacher recognizes that and makes it so that math is much more sort of understood to you, and as difficult as sometimes the topic may be in recalling the dates in history, if we can relate it, we can probably appreciate it. So as we talk about the climate change policy, with greatest respect to all of our guests, perhaps through our chief officer in the Ministry of Climate Change. Was it? No, Sustainability and Climate Resiliency. It's Jennifer Ahearn. No, and I, at the outset, you may not have heard, and I understand with your collective business schedules, I shared that having this discussion for 1:30, just the name of the ministry in a sense is instructive and indicative, and the importance of what we're doing now, but for future generations, the idea that we impact our lives in so many fundamental ways that are not always immediately appreciative. And with the greatest respect of all for any other jurisdiction, as I look at the Caymanians of yesteryear and I look at the coconut, the way they appreciated that, the way they respected and valued it, the way they utilized it, it sort of speaks to me as to the mantras where we are now, what we would and could be doing if we would follow some of their practices, not unlike maybe indigenous peoples elsewhere. But yet, we are a society of convenience, expediency, of nowness. Right now I would like chocolate, but now I have to be here. Right? So, Miss Jen, I would ask you for your, motherly, professional guidance that I don't go too far afield, but apologies up front if I do. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Oh, good afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone who's listening. Thank you so much for having us on this afternoon. We're really excited to be here talking to everyone about the draft climate change policy that we have out now for a public consultation. As you said, I think one of the things that people have to appreciate in terms of sustainability is that a lot of the habits of yesteryear were actually far more sustainable than some of the ways that we live today. So I think that's a good thing in that we can look back and see firsthand. Some people will remember when they lived a little more lightly on the earth than we do now. And hopefully, we can all think about some of the changes we can make as individuals that will make a difference in terms of a more sustainable future for us, as well as looking at the opportunities that we have either at the organization level or the national level to try and enhance our resiliency and our preparation for some of the impacts that we're going to have or that we're already having from climate change. So we're excited to be here today to talk about the draft policy, and I'm joined by some of the members of our technical working group, and I'm actually going to let them introduce themselves, if that's all right.
No, I was going to, but I appreciate that very much, and with your respect, and the other three guests, could we start with our Director of Environment, Ms. Gina? Could we start with you?
You have just introduced me.
Boy, see when your name drop, boy.
Job Thank you.
No, it's good. And then, of course, Director General, Mr. Tibbetts. Quick intro, sir.
Good day. John Tibbetts, Director General, National Weather Service. Looking forward to the conversation and enlightening the public on what we're about doing.
Okay, Mr. Boxall.
Sterling, thanks for having us on again. And I'm the Public Awareness Communications and Training Officer at Hazard Management. And very appreciative to be here with you and this opportunity to discuss this very important policy.
Thank you. And sometimes, I'll take license because I'm told, when I'm introduced last, we say the best for last. So I'm going to. Ms. Morgan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Morgan. I'm the Policy Advisor for Resiliency in the Ministry of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency. And I'm very happy to be here today.
All right. When we get you to join us again, we're going to ask you to pull our mic a little bit closer. But, Ms. Jen, the idea of policy, whether it's a development policy, whether it's just this is the policy the organization have in case this happens, but a climate change policy, just the word change, how do you develop policy for change? So why do we need a policy? What is a climate change policy?
Well, the climate change policy is a policy framework that we think will help guide the actions that we take to allow the Cayman Islands to prepare for and to adapt to and to mitigate the impacts of climate change. And I think that, obviously a policy is a high-level document. It has our vision. It has some of the sort of guiding principles that we want to use as our touchstones as we work on the implementation plan. But the first step is this policy document, which just sets that high-level framework for some of the things that we believe need to happen in order to improve our resiliency and our preparation. So if you haven't had a chance yet to take a look at the policy, we do ask everyone to please log on and check it out. It's on our website. It's also on the Government Consultation Hub as well. There's a feedback survey there too. And you can find it at, and I'm going to get the URL wrong, so let me look it up and make sure that I don't give it incorrectly. Morgan, help me find it. Or why don't you tell us,
www.gov.ky/climate change policy, all one word.
Okay. Yeah, so that's where you'll find it. And if you can go online and take a look at it, you'll see that it's how it's been put together and the areas that we've covered, as well as the vision that's included in it. But some of the things I think, and some of the other members of the panel can speak to, the fact is that we are already experiencing the impacts of climate change. I think that the window that we had, in the past we've looked forward and thought this was a long way down the road. and that climate change was something that was happening in the far distant future. The fact is that we're seeing those impacts already. We're starting to feel them now. We're starting to experience them now, and the window that we have for action is closing very quickly.
Okay.
Not just here in the Cayman Islands, but globally. So it's really, really quite timely. It would have been great. We had a draft policy in 2011 that a lot of people, including some of the people on the panel today, were involved in working on, but unfortunately we weren't able to get that one adopted and finalized. But we built on that. We used the input from the risk assessment that we did last year, and we've got a policy ready to go now. But I think it would probably be helpful if maybe Gina and Simon and John could talk a little bit about some of the impacts of climate change and how they're manifesting already here.
Perfect. And if I could, Ms. Gina, just initially as you start, just for the document, if we want to access the document, is it just an internet search if you can't remember the URL, or can we go to the .gov website and where it says search and we type it in? Would either of those give us the document?
Yes, that should give you the document.
Thanks.
But we'll repeat the URL again sometime, I guess, before we sign off here.
And also to tell people about the public meeting dates that we're having as well, because they start this week too.
Right, okay.
So we'll wrap up with that.
Okay, great. So take us through, because and I also maybe want to ask of you, we listened to international media, and it was at one point we were talking about global warming, and now we're talking about climate change. Is that just semantics? Is it a fundamental difference in the two phrases?
Right. I guess it really is a bit of semantics. Global warming describes the sort of mechanism by which climate change is happening. So it is basically an enhanced greenhouse effect that is making the atmosphere too warm, and it is definitely sort of not up for debate anymore that is down to human activity over a long period of time, putting emissions into the air like carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, because carbon dioxide isn't the only greenhouse gas, but it is the most common, and all greenhouse gas emissions are expressed in terms of carbon dioxide equivalent. So we can just talk about carbon dioxide to make it easier. But there are other greenhouse gases. You were, I think, asking us to talk, John and I, to talk about the impacts. So I'm going to have a go, and John, please interrupt me or join in, or I'll look at you to see if you're ready to take over. So I was starting with the fact.
Apologies, Miss Gina. I do apologize, Miss Susan. I was so engrossed in listening to you that we do have the schedule break.
Okay.
Maybe it's a cliffhanger when you come back.
Yes.
All right. Please accept my apology. Let's pause and say such wonderful things about our sponsors who have such confidence in our wide reach. Join us after the break as you listen to these messages.
Busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
How can you make a classic BLT sandwich even better? Well, by adding tuna. Wow. The land meets the sea in Subway's new sandwich, the Tuna BLT, available for a limited time. The Tuna BLT is exploding with flavor. Imagine crispy, juicy bacon strips on top of tuna, fresh lettuce, and slices of tomato, topped with your favorite sauce and choice of freshly baked bread. Enjoy the best of both worlds with the Tuna BLT from Subway. Subway, eat fresh.
The offices of dermatologist Dr. Wayne Porter will be taking appointments from May 28th through June 12th at his Crew Road Clinic. Appointment slots are limited. Whether you're seeking advanced skincare, Botox, filler, cosmetic skin enhancements, or simply looking to reduce wrinkles, Dr. Porter offers a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. For more information, email dr.porterkiman@gmail.com. or call 946-9020 to book your appointment today. That is 946-9020.
TD, you hear about that March for Jesus that they having worldwide?
Yeah, happening in Cayman too, 27th day of May 2023. Well, that's coming up here soon now. Let me tell you, I got my sneakers. I heard about it too.
And I hear that people can walk, you could ride your bicycle, you could use scooter, and drive your car, any form of transportation you could use.
Well, they also providing transportation from the outlying districts, eastern, north side. Yeah, they got to make sure that everybody that won't participate can be there.
So what time we got to be down there?
So they got to be at the 7 Mile Public Beach at 2 p.m. because the march can start at 3 p.m. So you get there for 2 p.m.
Okay. And then what we have up in town? I heard something they have in town too.
Oh, big praise and worship session afterward too. Oh yeah, I heard right of then the legislative assembly steps. Oh, I can't wait to praise and lift hands to God. Boy, I tell you, I go to march for Jesus.
Me too.
Ensuring your existing appliances and equipment are cleaned and maintained regularly is an easy way to improve energy efficiency in your home.
Have your air conditioning equipment serviced by a professional. Make sure bathroom and kitchen exhaust fans and refrigerator coils are cleaned regularly, because the harder your appliances have to work, the higher your bills will be.
The do-it-yourself energy audits on energy.gov.ky make it easy to find ways to save energy and money in your home or business.
Complete an energy audit of your home or business before 31st of May 2023 to be entered into a prize giveaway. Prizes include a $5,000 gift certificate to Home Gas and gift certificates to Cooling Pros, Foam Pros, Cossy Less, and Foster's.
To learn more, visit energy.gov.ky today and follow the National Energy Policy on Facebook and Instagram.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks very much for joining us. And I'm truly hoping that I'm not just respectful in providing an invaluable resource, but I'm mindful of the opportunity to learn as we welcome our Chief Officer, Gina, Ahearn, together with our Department Director, Gina Ebanks-Petrie, and our good friends from Hazard Management, Sam Boxall, with our Director General over at our National Weather Service, and Miss Golden-Ebanks herself, Miss Morgan. But Miss Gina, as much as I like to have fun, it's always good to learn. And you were sharing during the break together with, Mr. Tibbetts, where are we going and why we're there and what's going to happen?
Right. So you were asking about some of the climate change impacts that we might already be experiencing. And I think that most people, when we talk about climate change, or you mention climate change, they think about sea level rise, they think about hurricanes. So let's just cover those off. So all of the global models and the downscaled regional models for our area have predicted now very consistently that what we will experience is more frequent, possibly, but definitely an increase in storm intensity and the number of major Category 3 and above storms, so 4s and 5s. There is some thought that we'll have fewer storms overall as the sort of period of time progresses, but I don't know how. I'm not sure about the confidence in that, because all of these predictions have a confidence around them. But definitely getting more intense storms is something that will happen as a result of climate change. Sea level is already rising. It's going to continue to rise by over a foot by 2050. And possibly up to 3 feet by 2100 is the current prediction.
So this is 2023, and by 2050,
yes,
it's predicted to rise by 12 inches, a foot.
By over a foot, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
about half a meter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so in English that's a foot. Okay.
It's actually a foot and a half, more like.
Yeah. Thank you. Because 1 foot is, 3 meters, 3 feet, thereabouts. Yeah. So what is the confidence that we have in that would more than 95% confidence into it?
We've already seen it, Sterling Drain. I mean, Lands and Survey have had to adjust datum points for us. We're already beginning to see the effects of, for example, when we have high tides and some of our very high tides now, almost every time that happens now, we see groundwater, which is obviously responding to sea level the sort of mean high water mark, or the mean sea level, that groundwater comes up through drains all the time. We see that all the time in low-lying areas. We see the sea coming up low-lying roads that come into the coastal areas, like in North Sound Estates. That regularly happens. Just in mid-March, we had a period of high tides, and the department has been documenting this now for several years, where we see groundwater coming up through these drain wells and coming up roads.
I'm always mindful. I don't like media. I don't like pundits, and I say this with respect, whether it's the pastor, priest, or otherwise in the church, or whether it's the politician trying to gain traction. I don't like people who say things that could be a sort of term scaremongering, or they do it in such a way that is irresponsible, or just like that. But we can't shy away from things that are highly probable, things that have historical data that are indicative of things to come, right? So with that in mind, as we speak to that, Grand Cayman, still relatively low-lying, Little Cayman, even more so. In 27 years, or thereabouts, things being the way they are, what is our expectation of the impact on Little Cayman in particular, given that, it's a little bit low-lying?
Yeah, so, this is one of the things about uncertainty, about modeling, about trying to predict what nature is going to do and how it's going to respond exactly. John is much more qualified to speak about this than I am, but the global climate system is actually very complicated. It involves lots of different parameters that all interact with each other, and where there are feedback loops that can actually cause either the observed parameter to increase or decrease depending on the feedback loop. So it's not an easy prospect when you're talking about climate modeling. That's why there are experts in it who've been doing it for years, and why they use data, that long-term data sets, so that we're not just talking about a brief period of observation that could be explained by some other factor, but we're talking about trends over long periods of time. We're talking about data taken from ice cores that tell us about the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere at the time, etc. So there's a lot. We can use science to basically to validate and to provide a sort of a more robust explanation of some of the observations that are being made.
And I'm glad you talk about trends, because I'm trying to relate it to the business models that we use, and we do series analysis, and then we look at trends, and we take historical data, and we wonder what the projections of sales will be based on these parameters, and not again to be inflammatory, and not certainly to preach gloom and doom, but to get to a place where, listen, this is probable. I said it earlier, I said often, we all grew up in Cayman where you hear your mama say, you can't hear but you can feel. That is a consequence of action or inaction. So either through Mr. Tibbetts or you, Ms. Ebanks, the idea that what can we do that could help us, that when we get to that space, that where we are still safe, sensible, we're still enjoying it, we made whatever accommodations and concessions, but we're not faced with a desolate landscape or destruction.
Do you want to take it, John, or do you want me to continue? Up to you. You go.
She's doing such a good job.
I thought so too, man. I thought so.
I was just going to throw my feet up here. I just want to touch back just a little bit on something that she was talking about, and it has to be with the trends and what have you. So when you hear the National Weather Service say that the long-term averages that the National Weather Service has, traditionally the National Weather Service operates a 30-year average. Okay, and every 5 years, I think it is, we change our 30-year average, so it is constantly modernized and kept current, as it were. Okay. Now, when we are doing some of our long-term averaging and looking at a number of major hurricanes, we're looking at temperature change and what have you, we use what you call running averages. So it's a little bit different and stuff like that. But they're all indicating things are changing. in the world of climate and meteorology and everything else that you got. I'd like to think that this is only a meteorological problem, but it is much more than that. The sea levels are rising. We're already suffering from erosion on our 7 Mile beach and what have you. I don't see that necessarily going away unless we address it. I'd like to also say that when you go back to Miss Jennifer brought up the 2011 project that was done. A part of that project was some research that was done in the National Weather Service, where they actually came and took the data from the National Weather Service, and the data was then fed into their climate research model. But the outputs were fixed in such a way that the outputs were for here and now. Okay, so we actually had our own live data to say that we were at a certain point, but at the same time we were looking at the model outputs that confirm that, hey, yeah, you're at that point right now. And we looked at things like rainfall, and we looked at temperature and what have you. And the data that from there indicates and supports the idea of the long-term climate models in what they've been talking about. Now, when you start to get to the impacts, things get very interesting. Mr. Boxall over there has just come back from a storm surge workshop in the Bahamas, as we're working on getting some improved technology in that regard. But you might look at it, and when we look at Hurricane Ivan, for example, it had 8 to 12 foot of storm surge. And we're talking about a sea level rise of, let's say, a foot, and you go like, yeah, that's not too significant at all. But you need to understand that, especially when you start to bring some of those impacts in on high tides and stuff like that, everything is multiplied, and the impacts are multiplied on us. All right. We've already seen some of the damaging waves and the damaging actions of the hurricanes. And I remember doing working on a research project with one of my colleagues, and he was working on climate change and the impact of increased major storms in the Northwest Caribbean. Now, if you're looking at the storms in the Northwest Caribbean, unfortunately, one of the bad news I got for you is the Northwest Caribbean is home of the Cat 5 hurricane. Okay, there's a lot of Cat 5 hurricanes come through the Northwest Caribbean, but they're not impacting us directly.
May I ask, as we look at the Cat 5 and the hurricanes, the Ivans, and even since, is there either potential that something will be beyond our scale of Cat 5, and as a result, will we now have to create something,
Cat 6
or a Cat whatever? Yeah.
No, how the categories of hurricanes are set up is the Cat 5 hurricane is 157 miles per hour or greater.
Yeah.
Okay, so you go up 175 or whatever. The decision with regards to changing the category system would be at a higher level than.
So it's policy.
So it would work at the regional climate office, or it would work at the National Hurricane Center.
Yeah.
And they would have to see a significant increase in storms above the level. So let's say we come out now and we end up with 10 storms of 175 miles per hour or greater and stuff like that. Then you start looking at it and goes, I think we need to rethink some things.
Yeah. And the reason why I ask that is sometimes we like labels when we put things in boxes, but it doesn't matter if it's 150 miles an hour or 250 miles an hour. What do we call a Cat 5 or whatever? The fact that impact is and how we impact. And like when we come back from the break, we got a couple of comments from our listeners we want to share now through some questions, and then maybe get an understanding where we are. I know, Ms. Morgan, you're here, and like the good civil servants we are, we always follow protocol, but I know you're welcome to contribute as you wish, right? So likewise, Mr. Boxall. Join us after this break.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news. Brought to you by Tropical Plaza on Smith Road.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Zollins. The Department of Environment is aware of reports circulating on social media relating to a cruise ship allegedly anchored outside of the designated anchorage area. The DOE have contacted the Port Authority, who is responsible for assigning anchorage points to ships in port, and they have confirmed the cruise ship is within the anchorage zone. Conservation officers from the DOE were also deployed and have confirmed the ship is anchored in the sand and that it is not within the marine protected area. In international news, a security firm that sells AI weapon scanners to schools is facing fresh questions about its technology after a student was attacked with a knife that the $3.7 million system failed to detect. Evolve Technology is a security firm that works to replace traditional metal detectors with AI weapon scanners. Previous press releases have listed the weapons the system can find, which include firearms, explosive devices, and knives. However, a BBC investigation last year revealed that testing had found the system could not reliably detect large knives after Evolve's scanner missed 42% of large knives in 24 walkthroughs. Armed insurgents who crossed the border from Ukraine to launch attacks in Russia's Belgorod region have been defeated, Moscow claims. Villages near the border were evacuated after coming under shell fire in one of the most significant cross-border raids since the start of Russia's invasion. Russia says 70 attackers were killed and insists the fighters are Ukrainian. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Zollins.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news. Brought to you by Tropical Plaza on Smith Road.
Cayman Queens. Your nails say everything about you without saying a word. The Nail Palace, upstairs Tropical Plaza, Smith Road. Turning manicures, acrylics, pedicures into an art. Nails are not about being noticed. They're about being remembered. Book your appointment today, 526-1217, or visit them on Instagram, Nail Palace 345. The Nail Palace, upstairs Tropical Plaza on Smith Road. Great nails don't happen by chance. They happen by appointment. The Nail Palace, 526-1217.
Between the traffic, the meetings, kids' activities, there just isn't enough time. Best Health Pharmacy was a game changer. Not only are they centrally located on Eastern Avenue, but they deliver prescriptions for free anywhere in Georgetown and West Bay. I could not believe it. When my prescription ran out, they ran it back to me. Best Health Pharmacy, located at Crown Square Plaza on Eastern Avenue, across from Edie's Decor, offering free prescription delivery anywhere in Georgetown and West Bay. Call 949-1301 or WhatsApp your prescription to 924-5358. Best Health Pharmacy. Your health, your convenience is their priority.
The Ministry of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency wants your feedback on the draft National Climate Change Policy. You are invited to join representatives from the Ministry, Department of Environment, Hazard Management, and the National Weather Service at the Aston Ruddy Center at 4 p.m. on Friday, the 26th of May, or Little Cayman Beach Resort from 10:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. on Saturday, the 27th of May, to learn about the draft policy and give your feedback. To view the full list of meeting dates, times, and venues, visit gov.ky/climate change policy. Log on to gov.ky/climate change policy today to learn more.
CUC Advisory. Customers are advised of a scheduled outage on Sunday, May 28th between 8:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. for a portion of Shedden Road from the junction with North Sound Road to the Mango Tree Restaurant, including Printer Way and Archive Lane. For more information, please contact CUC's customer service team at 949-5200 or email service@cuc.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And protocol being established. The excellent company of Ms. Jennifer, Ms. Gina, Mr. Simon, and of course, you can't go to with Mr. John and then of the pleasure, Ms. Morgan. Thank you very much for helping us to appreciate the importance of these public discussions, the other public meetings that we can attend in the respective communities. But sometimes not knowing, for some people, is great because we can ignore it and bury heads in the sand. For others, I need to know because it helps me to prepare. I said prevention is better than cure. To be forearmed, be forewarned is forearmed. Ms. Jen, take us through before I ask the other questions. I mean, we are affected as we are impacted as we impact what we affect.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, as we've been talking about, the impacts are already here. The projected impacts that we see coming down the road are going to be significant. And I think one of the things that everyone needs to appreciate is that this is not an environmental issue. This is a human issue. This is something that is going to impact just about every aspect of all of our lives. The Premier talks about the fact that climate change is an existential crisis. And I think that that sounds pretty dire, but it's true. And there really aren't any sectors that will not be untouched in some way, shape, or form by the impacts that we are going to see. And a lot of these impacts are already happening, and some of them are already, we passed the tipping point with them. And even if we were to shut off all of our emissions today, there's still some impacts that are already baked in and that we're going to start to feel. But I think I'm going to ask Morgan to just talk through some of the sectors that we've seen. I mentioned the climate change risk assessment that we did last year, and just if she can sort of touch on some of the sectors that we've identified that are at risk and are going to be feeling some of these impacts.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Jennifer. So we found through the climate change risk assessment that there are 11 broad sectors that are at risk from climate change. And that includes human settlements and infrastructure, human health, biodiversity, tourism, agriculture and fisheries, financial services, the energy supply, our transportation system, business, land use change, and finally waste management. And so perhaps we can give a few examples of what that actually means. So we found that there were 18 severe risks. So these were the top risks to economy and society. And then we have biodiversity and habitats. We found 9 in each grouping. And so just to give a few examples, I'm not going to name all 18 right now. So for economy and society, we have damage and inundation to the sewage system and release of wastewater. Another one, disruption to fossil fuel imports, power generation and distribution. And perhaps the third one, impacts on our communications infrastructure. And so to biodiversity and habitats, at the top we have changes to the distribution of our, changes to turtle distributions and population dynamics. And then in terms of our coral reefs, increased frequency and severity of coral bleaching and coral disease outbreaks. And so, yeah, these are some of the severe risks that we found with the climate change risk assessment. And then there were, of course, some moderate risks, no less important, though, and that included numerous different things. For example, losses in our fisheries, impacts on our livestock, so agriculture impacts. And then there's also some impacts also on biodiversity and habitats, so changes in the distribution and abundance of our large offshore deep-sea fish.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's really key about the work that the team at Hazard Management is doing is the multi-hazard or the all-hazard approach, because we have talked a lot this afternoon about sort of the projections around hurricanes, but those aren't the only events that are going to impact our quality of life and our ability to feel safe and secure where we're living and working and recreating. And I don't know if Simon wants to talk a little bit about some of that work for them.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Dwayne. So from our perspective at Hazard Management, we're looking, climate change, I think, is difficult for people to get their head around a little bit. They see or hear information about the collapse of the ice sheets and the glaciers, and, obviously with additional warming of the atmosphere, there's a degree of thermal expansion. But they've been doing radar altimetry readings from space for the last 25 years, and they measured a 3-inch rise. And as Gina was talking about, the projection is for an additional foot of sea level rise over the next 30 years. So we look at it in terms of, hazard and risk analysis. What are the implications for a foot of sea level rise in Cayman? What percentage of the 100 square miles of the Cayman Islands is going to be permanently inundated? Are we going to become 10%, 20% smaller in size? What percentage of people are going to be impacted that live on or near the coast or in low-lying areas? And we're on a porous limestone. Below our feet is limestone, so it's not just we look at the sea, but the sea has implications inland as well. So the sea level rise affects groundwater, and as Gina was talking about, we're seeing it coming through the drains. We're seeing already on the high tides it covering the roads in North Sound estates. So at what point are we going to have overtopping of certain coastal areas, permanent inundation, and then if we look at our mean high tide line, already with that 3-inch rise in sea level, we're seeing a 5-fold increase in high tide flooding. So the implications for our beaches that we love to go and enjoy and walk on, driving our cars through salt water. We would like to build risk maps, know your zone maps, not just from the sort of impacts from major events like hurricanes, which will be more impactful with a foot of sea level rise on top, but just the chronic flooding implications. What is the sea level rise going to do to the septic tank systems? We like to hide them underground, but once, even on a northwester or a storm surge event, we're starting to see the odor come up. So how are we going to make sure that we map these things, the implications of the rising sea, the impacts, bigger impacts from waves and surge as well, and build in such a way that going forward, our homes and our businesses are not going to be impacted, that we're not adding to the problem any further, that we're assessing the risk accurately. And we just went away on a storm surge conference recently. John is doing more work on wave analysis. And then, we've got to look really hard at the implications of, a foot of sea level rise will result probably in, a 50-year, once in 50-year flood event, what is now happening nearly every day on the high tide.
Yeah.
So how are we going to evolve and continue to be a strong, robust society where we can continue to thrive, and we will do it, but there's a big challenge.
So picking up on Salmon's points, maybe just read the idea of low-lying areas, the groundwater, and perhaps building. We have a couple of comments from our listeners that speak to that. Let me share, if I might. Low-lying, in particular on Grand Cayman, Little Cayman. We spoke to it earlier, and the question that's been asked, what's the data sort of looking at in the trends for Little Cayman and the lower lying areas over the next quarter century or so? Specifically, are we seeing it? It's going to be flooded and unbuildable. Is it? What does the data say for that? Are the current projections?
So the information that we have from our regional climate models and the work that John was talking about when we actually did some even downscaling of those to sort of more specific information for Cayman, we can't really differentiate the impacts between Grand and Little. The models are just not on that scale. So whatever we're talking about generally for the Cayman Islands is what we're expecting the 3 islands to experience.
So if we were to try to be a little more direct, then are we looking, trends continued as they are, that some of the areas that are lower lying, irrespective of whichever island, could be underwater in 25 years?
Yeah, there's definitely the possibility that low-lying areas are going to be either permanently inundated in some cases, or will experience more frequent inundation by the sea.
And that's something they're seeing in the Florida Keys right now already. And there
Coastal England, different places have seen it, right?
And they're showing, there's places in the Keys where they've told the residents, you can expect that your road will be underwater for a certain period of time each year, increasingly longer lengths of time, and that the country or the county or the city has said to them, we're not prepared to maintain it. We're not going to come in and bail you out. And people sort of keep a little car top boat next to their house for when the water comes out to get out to the main road. So these changes are happening all over.
Yeah, we've seen areas in coastal UK where they are banned and now no longer habitable, right?
Yeah.
So let me read this then. It says, would there be a benefit to more water being pumped from the oceans / sea and converted to fresh usable water all over the world, aka as the water company model, which can reduce the water rise level? I read it verbatim, and maybe that's scientific in a sense that there.
Yeah,
you'd have to do an awful lot of pumping.
Yeah,
awful lot of
need
pumping.
a big pump, very large.
But I think the other thing with it also is that the water's got to go somewhere. And if you're pumping out water and what have you, and I don't know if you're storing it in a tank, but then maybe the water is evaporating and going back.
So the gravity, what goes up must come down.
So you're still feeding back everything. It's a cycle.
All right.
But we will see growing areas of wetlands. We will see the water encroaching further and further. But I mean, it's interesting. In Florida in 2020, they passed a law now that all new government builds, they can't use taxpayer dollars unless they can prove that it's not going to be impacted by flooding.
Okay. This one reads, isn't the erosion on 7 Mile Beach almost all man-made because of poor approval and planning of development?
Yeah, well, certainly that feeds into the problem on 7 Mile Beach. I mean, anytime you put a hard structure on an active beach, you're inviting the sea to interact with that structure and cause scouring of the sand in the beach. So all sea level rise does is make that more likely because you've got the sea has a greater reach. So if you've put a wall down at what was say 30 feet from the mean high water mark when you built it, and we see sea level rise happening, that wall now is suddenly closer to the mean high water mark because you've got a greater volume of water impacting, right? So it is already, we're seeing it as the walls and the structures are basically exacerbating the problem, and sea level rise is coming along and adding to that issue.
Okay. This listener asked, is Cayman ready right now to handle, and how quickly do they think recovery from another Ahearn or greater natural disaster?
I think, in terms of our response mechanism, I don't think it's ever been stronger. I think we are, we've got an excellent mechanism, lots of stakeholders across all areas, but, we're low-lying, so we're certainly remain vulnerable. We've got a better understanding of the hazard risks thanks to John and his team. And we're continuing to refine our knowledge and information, but I think we remain vulnerable, and I think until we can really properly assess our risks and start building differently or retreating, as you said in the very beginning, looking back at the ancestors who built on stilts, this is quite smart. It seems like now when you look at the beach's erosion and that lack of beach obviously makes the properties much more vulnerable to wave impacts. Sorry.
No. I was going to ask this question after, but since you mentioned stilts, this listener says, I know we have the break, so why does government discourage and make it costly for us to build on stilts or columns? That John didn't write that, Simon didn't write it, I don't know who wrote it, but it was written. So is that something we can answer maybe after the break? And the other question is there a map of the 2050 topography? Let's answer those after the break, huh? I want to know the answer. All right, join us right after the break. Stay tuned.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
a caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
You deserve a unique vacation this year, one with easy non-stop flights from Cayman. Cayman Airways offers more non-stop flights to and from the Cayman Islands than any other airline. Now you can add Panama and Los Angeles to your travel bucket list. Skip the hassle of connecting flights. Panama is just a 2-hour non-stop flight from Cayman. And Los Angeles? Get there in less than 5 hours non-stop aboard Cayman Airways. Call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com to book your Los Angeles or Panama getaway today.
Freedom, Cayman Brack. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
The 2023 Household Budget Survey is currently being conducted by the Economics and Statistics Office. The data collected from the survey will determine the items and the dollar value of these items that are included in the new Consumer Price Index basket of consumer goods and services for the Cayman Islands. Trained interviewers with identification cards from the ESO will visit 2,400 randomly selected households across all districts. The Household Budget Survey will run for 1 year, ending February 2024. Approximately 200 households will be interviewed each month. The interviews are confidential in accordance with a Statistics Act. No individual data will be published or disclosed. Survey data are exempt from Freedom of Information requests. For further information on any aspect of the Household Budget Survey, please contact the ESO hotline at 516-3329.
SNAP Clinical Camp is back and will be extended to a 2-week summer camp from July 4th to July 14th. Is your child between the ages of 6 and 11 years and experiencing behavioral issues? Do you want your child to learn proven methods to support emotion regulation and effective problem solving? Do you want your child to have an unforgettable start to their summer? Then contact the Family Resource Center at frc@gov.ky to register your child. The deadline for registration is May 31st. Volunteer opportunities are also available. Family Resource Center. Building people, building families.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And as I look at the clock, it's digital, so therefore it must be accurate. We're like less than 5 minutes away, and we have Miss Jen and Miss Gina and Simon and John, and of course with Morgan, the climate change. I know we'll have many discussions over the course of the month. I know you have many public discussions scheduled, and I want to thank you for allowing us to have a conversation that may invite more of us to come out to the education sessions. But before we do, and thanks to Ms. Susan for drawing my attention to the imminent closure of the program. The questions that we posed before, could we perhaps re-ask then, and including the map, but also the planning process to some extent? Slightly.
I think just on the planning process, I think we talked off air that there certainly have been some changes made over the years. I think there's a increasing awareness of the need to look at things a little more innovatively with some of these impacts in mind. And so I do think that that's a process. The other thing to remember too, that there are some instances that the regulations do seem to make it difficult to do things a particular way, but there's also some examples where what the regulations are saying is a minimum, and when you're developing your property, you have the opportunity to increase some of those things, whether it's the setbacks or some other other pieces of the puzzle that you can work with. So I think it's, it is definitely improving. I think it's a continually evolving situation.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is where maybe these discussions, not unlike the Electoral Boundaries Commission, is about in the community, but as a populace, we engage, we ask questions, we trust what is said, but we verify, but we partner. And whether we're 15 or 51, we're going to be impacted by it, maybe sooner rather than later, maybe more negatively in our absence of action. So hopefully, easier said than done, but maybe it's time to work together as opposed to against each other. The eternal optimists. But anyway, with that, I really appreciate you coming in and being so willing to share. I know we would not even scratch the surface, as it were. But you have some public meetings. I know we have other scheduled discussions here as well.
Yeah, no, we have some public meetings coming up. So just a reminder that you can go to www.gov.ky climate change policy to download the policy. You'll also find that there's a consultation hub there as well. And our public meetings are starting this week. We're going to be in Cayman-Brac this Friday, starting at 4 p.m. at the Aston Ruddy Centre. We'll be in Little Cayman on Saturday, starting at 10:30 a.m. at the Little Cayman Beach Resort. Next week, on the 6th of June, starting at 6 p.m., we'll be in West Bay at the Sir John A. Cumber Primary School. The next night, the 7th of June, we'll be here in Georgetown at the University College of the Cayman Islands, starting at 6 p.m. On the 8th of June, we're going to be in Bodentown at the Theoline McCoy Primary School, again, starting at 6 p.m. And then on the 13th of June, we'll be in East End at the William Allen McLaughlin Civic Center, starting at 6 p.m., and then finally in Northside on the 15th of June at 6 p.m. in the Ebanks Civic Center. So those are the schedules. They are also on our website as well, so you can find it there. But we would encourage everyone, please do take a few minutes, download or log on and take a look at the policy. We've got some vision and goals. The vision that we have is a climate resilient Cayman Islands that promotes and sustains vibrant communities, a thriving natural environment, and a robust economy where people can live their best lives now and for future generations. And that is our vision for this policy. And we really hope that everyone will take some time to take a look at what's being proposed, to give us their feedback and let us know what changes they'd like to see, or if there's particular pieces that they really support. And please do come out to the public meetings. We will be there looking to engage and have some conversations around this too. We really want to hear from everyone because this is a policy that is going to impact all of us for many years to come because of the issue that it's dealing with.
All right, well, Ms. Gina, if you wish to have a comment or...
No, I would just say that, that the policy document I think is really, really important. We spoke about the fact that many, many sectors are going to be affected by climate change, and I think that unless the government is deliberate about encouraging cross-fertilization of ideas as how to cope with climate change, how to adapt to climate change, also how do we, reduce our contribution to climate change, which is called mitigation. We need to work, as you said, Sterling, it really is very necessary that everybody works together with this. This is not just an environmental issue, as the chief officer said. It's going to affect farming. It's going to affect people in their daily lives. They're going to have to cope with heat stress, etc. So I think that it is really critical that we all come together on this. And what the policy does try to do is outline strategies in each of those areas where we can do things, practical things, to help lessen our vulnerability and increase our resilience in the face of some of the impacts of climate change.
Well, I'm hoping that we'll have informed discussions. We have healthy respect for people's expression of their perspective, but we come away with a willingness to appreciate individual responsibility. I pray that you have not just only a safe trip over to the back in Little Cayman on the weekend, but those in attendance will come away with a sense of informed perspective and a willingness to work together. Looking forward to having you guys back and your team at the next scheduled session.
Great. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure, Mr. John, and of course, good friend Simon from the media. He's always there. All right, tomorrow's Wednesday, right, Sue? Well, Wednesdays mean two things. One, you got a chance again to join Mr. Orton in the morning for the record. And then the other thing, well, we'll tell you about that when you come back to talk to David after the midday news. But until then, we invite you to have a safe, blessed, productive, and enjoyable afternoon. God bless.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. And Cayman Airways. Call them on 949-2311 to book your nonstop flights to Los Angeles and Panama.
Here is where tradition never dies. This is your radio, Cayman.